Have you ever taken a moment to think about how we assume that what we read on the internet, see on television, and hear on the radio is the truth?
In exchange for truth, you'll get freedom.
A wise person once said, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth.
I can tell you, it is absolutely true.
News and the truth are not the same thing.
That's a problem, but we can fix it.
What she's doing is separating what you want to hear from what you need to hear.
The truth isn't always the most exciting version of things, or the best, or the worst. It is somewhere in between.
Both sides need to come together.
And it needs to be heard.
Join me, Benito Bergatini, and producer Christine Vessels for The Honest Truth. 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays to Thursdays on Smile 90.4 FM.
The Honest Truth is presented in proud association with Brimstone Investment Corporation. Profitability, empowerment, and positive social impact.
The Honest Truth with Benito Vergatini on Smile 90.4 FM.
A very good evening if you've just joined us. Welcome to the conversation. This is The Honest Truth. Remember, you're certainly welcome to be a part of it and share your thoughts. Join us on Twitter, on Facebook, via the Smile 90.4 FM app, or on the SMS line at 35904. Joining us in studio this evening is Professor Claudia Gray. She's a pediatrician and allergy specialist. Claudia, good evening, and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Benito. Thanks very much.
We're talking about what's going to be happening next week. Next week is World Allergy Week, which is happening from the 7th to the 13th of April. This evening, however, we're talking specifically around food allergies. Before we talk about food allergies, Claudia, what is an allergy?
So, Benito, in simple terms, an allergy is an abnormal response to something that should actually be harmless. So it can come in a variety of guises. We can be allergic to things in the environment like dust mite or pollen, which should be tolerated.
Yeah.
And that can cause symptoms like allergic rhinitis. We can be allergic to drugs, which are tolerated by the vast majority and cause severe drug reactions. We can be allergic to foods, food proteins such as peanut and egg, which should be tolerated by most human beings. For some reason, in some people, are not tolerated. And that's a reaction involving the immune system is called an allergy.
All right. And this evening we're talking food allergies. Are food allergies specifically on the increase?
This is a very interesting topic because allergies in general have been on the increase in the past few decades, and it's come in waves. So the first wave was sort of the asthma and allergic rhinitis epidemic, followed by the eczema. And most recently, we are dealing with a food allergy epidemic, which has really arisen in the last 20 years or so, initially seen in westernized countries, and now more recently also seen in developing countries such as South Africa.
You say an epidemic, it's widespread?
Epidemic, widespread, taking on in huge proportions, way too large to be explained by pure genetic changes. So we feel that environmental factors are probably responsible for this unexpectedly large increase in allergies and currently food allergies that we are seeing. So worldwide, yes.
And those environmental factors, what are the contributory factors here?
Well, I'd be a very clever person to answer that because that's under massive research on a worldwide basis. Initially, it was dubbed about 20 years ago as the hygiene hypothesis. And that was the hypothesis that in modern days we are living too cleanly and our immune systems are being diverted from fighting infections to fighting things that are actually harmless, like allergens. And that's sort of morphed in the last 10 years into what we call the microbiome hypothesis. So it's not just a lack of infectious diseases, but it's a lack of a healthy set of bugs, both in the skin and in the gut, probably caused by various factors in modern living, such as overuse of cleaning products, living in clean environments, not enough time spent outdoors, etc.
Food production, is that also a contributory factor? You mentioned what is it, the resistance to or the lack of a healthy set of bugs. Processed foods generally doesn't have a lot of health within them. Could that also be a factor?
Absolutely a factor. In fact, studies have shown that an increased consumption of fast foods is related to an increase in allergic conditions such as asthma by many-fold, and that increased intake of foods rich in antioxidants such as fruit and veggies are associated with a decrease in allergies. So certainly over-processed fast food type foods can be associated with a large-scale increase in allergies.
The voice there of Professor Claudia Gray, pediatrician and allergy specialist, joining us in discussion this evening on The Honest Truth. Certainly share your thoughts as well. And if you are suffering from food allergies, you can share your experiences too. How do you manage it? 35904. You're welcome certainly to share your thoughts on Facebook, on Twitter, or via the Smile 90.4 FM app. Specifically, Claudia, food allergies, are school-going children at risk?
Absolutely, Benito. So we had very little South African data until a few years ago when, based at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Cape Town, where I'm also based part-time, we undertook a population scale study on the prevalence of food allergies in the Western Cape, and currently it stands at about 2.5%, which means 2.5% of our kids, 1 in 40, has a food allergy. So in every year at a specific school, if they're 100 learners, you'll have 2 or 3 of those children with a food allergy, which is potentially dangerous. So it is already, and it's going to become more of a large-scale problem in any particular situation which looks after children, such as schools or creches.
So what is being planned then for World Allergy Week? I believe there's some sort of training modules which are planned, particularly for teachers and caregivers.
Yeah, so World Allergy Week, the topic, as we've discussed, is food allergies, a global issue. And we're taking this home to South Africa because we feel that this is a huge issue that is probably under-resourced, understudied, and people are under-aware of it. And one of the areas where children can fall short is in the schooling environment, which needs to be a protective environment. Children are vulnerable. They're not looked after by their main caregivers in the school environment. Suddenly, they're open to mistakes. They're open to eating the foods that they're allergic to because there's no one hovering over them. So we want teachers and caregivers and cooks and chefs and everyone involved in a child's education to be aware of the dangers of food allergy and how we can reduce the risks in a child's learning environment. And this we'd like to do through a variety of training mechanisms. We want to do face-to-face contact sessions with schools. We've done this. It's enormously helpful. An allergist going to a school, showing them pictures of food allergies, what to expect, how do you use an adrenaline pen, for example, and when do you use it to take the angst out of those situations. And also on a more larger scale, the Allergy Foundation of South Africa, or AFSA, has now launched an online training academy, and part of that is providing training modules for teachers and caregivers on allergy awareness and keeping children safe in schools.
Okay, and are the schools and the ECD centres, are they taking you up on this particular offer?
Well, it's early days still,
Okay.
but people are hungry for information. And certainly all the schools that I've visited on my personal capacity for my patients and on a capacity of representing AFSA have been so grateful for the contact, for the information, for the demonstration. And I think it really empowers teachers to really understand, wow, that's it. That's why we need to take these precautions.
I believe that one of the programs or interventions planned for World Allergy Week is also the possibility of sponsoring a school to receive these training courses.
Absolutely, Benito. So obviously nothing's for free these days, except all our voluntary time spent on things like AFSA. But certainly it costs a certain amount of money to do a training course online. We've kept the costs as little as possible. But schools may not take this up because they may say, well, we don't have the finances for this. They're pushed for time, they're pushed for funds. So, we would like to appeal to the public to say, wow, if you are interested in sponsoring this unbelievably worthy cause, then please feel welcome to enable teachers from a wide variety of school to receive this valuable training.
How would they go about doing that, and what is the cost, Claudia?
The cost, I'm not 100% sure of, but certainly by contacting the Allergy Foundation. The website is www.allergyfoundation.org. .co.za. There are phone numbers, there are email addresses on there for primary contact points, and they can discuss that. They can do a part sponsorship, a full sponsorship, look at rural schools, urban schools. There's such big scope here for helping people in this huge epidemic that lies ahead of us.
The very first food allergy support group, I believe, is also going to be established in World Allergy Week from the 7th to the 13th of April. That sounds particularly beneficial, particularly for parents.
Absolutely. Support groups are invaluable for people suffering from chronic diseases, and we forget that allergy is a chronic disease which is quite disabling and can really reduce one's quality of life. And parents are often left at a loss. They feel unsupported. Support groups are very common overseas in the States and in the UK, but slightly lacking still in South Africa. So we'd like to get the ball rolling with such support groups, eczema support groups, food allergy support groups. And the one that we're particularly going to be involved in initially is a celiac disease support group. So celiac disease is an immunological disease where there is an apparent response to gluten in wheat-containing products.
I see. Claudia, how do these food allergies develop? Is it from birth, or do children fall prey to environmental factors as you've described? How do these food allergies develop?
Yeah, it's a combination. A lot of medicine, if you're writing an exam in the medical field and you don't know the answer, always just say it's multifactorial. So this as well, it's a combination of genetics and environmental modification. So genetics play a big part if there are food allergies in a family, or indeed any allergies such as eczema, rhinitis, asthma. It increases by manyfold the chances of the offspring having an allergy. If both parents are allergic in some way, a child has an 80% chance of having some form of allergic disease. In any newborn baby now, even if the parents are not allergic at all, a newborn baby has a 15% chance of developing some kind of an allergic disease, and that escalates as the family history increases. So that's genetics. But then we also talk about environment and epigenetics, so factors that can modify the expression of our genes. Very much the vogue, epigenetics and the microbiome, and these are all factors that play a part in the expression of allergic diseases.
How do parents empower themselves, particularly if a child develops a food allergy through the course of his or her foundation years?
Okay, so first of all, they need to look at the risk of the baby. If there's a strong family history of food allergies, or if the child early on shows some form of allergic manifestation, such as eczema, especially moderate to severe eczema, they need to know that their child is at greater risk of allergic diseases and seek help early to try and determine, is my child already allergic or at risk of allergies? Because if children, many years ago, we used to say, avoid the highly allergenic foods such as peanuts and egg, and only introduce them at 2, 3, 4 years of age. But that mantra has changed completely. We now know in at-risk kids, actually the earlier you get those foods and the better, to try and trick our immune systems into still accepting those foods. So the whole paradigm has shifted. Parents need to know if there's a risk of allergic diseases in the family. They should discuss this with someone in the know quite early on, because certainly some allergies can be prevented by introducing the right foods at the right time, by moisturizing the kids with a bland emollient from an early age to prevent eczema. So there are prevention strategies. But then, of course, it could occur randomly in a previously healthy child. And then with the introduction of solids, particularly the allergenic foods, children need to be watched closely as they receive any new foods. And any potential manifestations such as rashes, tummy cramps, vomiting, swelling, particularly breathing difficulties and circulation difficulties, they need to rush to get help immediately. It's unbelievably important to be seen by someone who knows about food allergies, because food allergies are very misunderstood and often overdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. So many people who think they have a food allergy in fact do not. So we really need to take seriously if there's a potential reaction and have them seen by the right people tested in the right way, to be able to say you are allergic to this, you are not allergic to this, and if you are not allergic to something, jolly well get it into your diet so that your body remains friends with it. So it's a very subtle and growing field that's very specialized and changing over the years, and we are fortunate enough that allergy has become a subspecialty now in South Africa. So there are many allergy specialists around who can help children from a young age. Kids can be tested at 3-4 months of age for allergies.
And how often should they be tested? Just once or annually?
Yeah, that's according to need. So if a child shows signs of a reaction, then obviously they're going to be tested for a variety of foods to see exactly what they're allergic to. If you have an established food allergy, your allergist will guide you as to how often you need to be tested. Generally, it's every 6 to 12 months. Some food allergies are outgrown, such as egg, wheat, and milk. They are commonly outgrown. So we see the kids every 6 to 12 months, retest them, and are eventually, hopefully, able to say, yeah, this is looking good. Let's challenge your kid now. Some food allergies are not outgrown commonly, such as nuts and seafood. So the testing frequency depends on which allergy a kid has. If you are shown not to have food allergies, then you don't need testing again.
Yes.
That's it. That's done. Although there's always a but to it. Some allergies can develop in adulthood, and then it would be driven by symptomatology. So nut allergies, seafood, and preservative allergies can unfortunately present later in life as well.
Sure, there's a wealth of information that one needs to be aware of, and one can forgive parents for feeling slightly overwhelmed by everything that you've shared this evening, Claudia.
Overwhelmed and also misinformed. Unfortunately, Dr. Google does a lot of damage in these things. We have many trained people who are in the know. We can do a great job of trying to minimize and prevent allergies, but we also need to do a great job in serving those children who already have a food allergy so that they remain as safe as possible in all of their caring environments.
Yeah, I think it's particularly useful, especially as a food allergy support group is going to be set up as part of World Allergy Week, that as many as possible get onto that particular portal and inform themselves, particularly if they've got school-going children.
Sure, there's a wealth of information on the Allergy Foundation website and the Allergy Society of South Africa. There are leaflets, there are action plans, things that may seem minor but are unbelievably important are things like having an action plan. If a child has a food allergy, they must not go to school without their plan that says, John Smith is allergic to wheat and egg. If this happens, give this. If this happens, give that. Every single child should have an action plan. Every single child going to school with a food allergy should have a letter written to the teacher saying, this child is allergic. Please take the following precautions. Simple things. Hand washing after meal times to prevent the spread of allergens. Not sharing food with other children. Simple things need to be taken very seriously to make the environment as absolutely safe as possible.
World Allergy Week from the 7th to the 13th of April. Further information available for you, allergyfoundation.co.za. Professor Claudia Gray, pediatrician and allergy specialist. We'll leave it there for this evening. Claudia, thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure. Thanks very much.